Okay, hi everybody. My name is Richard Esperance. I go by the name of my man Richard. Welcome to a better lifestyle. Today I have Scott Reib with me. He's been doing law for over 20 years now. So he's got a lot of experience and a lot of insights when it comes to the legal stuff. So please, Scott, tell a little bit about your story, and we'll get started.
Hey, Richard, thanks for having me on this show. Yeah, I am a lawyer and business coach. I've been a lawyer for a little over 27 years. Have had my own firm 18 years. I'm located in Texas, just north of Dallas, in the thriving metropolis of Denton, and I've got a couple boys that are now 21 and 22 and 25, and one of them's married. Have a pretty full life, and my mission in life is to help business owners and entrepreneurs grow, scale, and protect their businesses. And we do that through our legal subscription plan, our mastermind programs, our podcast, and my new book, The Shatterproof Entrepreneur.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about the book, and but first of all, why did you write the book, and how did you came up with those seven strategies?
Yeah, the book has been kind of a long time in the works. I did an outline for it in 2019. And then just kind of things in the world kind of changed. I just never got through it. Met a book coach in October of 22 and was talking about what I do. And she was like, man, you need to write a book. I'm like, I actually have an outline. Showed her the outline, and she's like, man, that would be great. You should do that. And so we started to work on it. It just launched a couple of weeks ago. Um, it's called the Shatterproof Entrepreneur, and it's the stuff that we've been talking about and teaching our Access members for the last 12 years. But it's all in one spot. And I can only help so many people one-to-one. I've got a limited amount of hours and the ability to do that. And so I come on podcasts, I go on stages, and with the book, people can go at their own pace, but I can get it in front of, lots and lots more people so that they all can have an opportunity to have shatterproof businesses. The people that can't maybe access me, maybe they don't have the funds, but with a book for $10, you can get the strategies and try to at least start implementing them yourselves.
So, what are the seven strategies?
Yeah, and in the book there's 6 phases to being shatterproof. There definitely are at least 7 strategies for sure. But the first phase of being shatterproof is that you have to have a solid foundation. And that foundation isn't just legal, but a big part of it is legal. You need to have the right entity structure in place so that whatever your business endeavor is, it protects you so you don't have exposure personally. And then that you've also got a way to protect your business from your liability. And then it all comes down to leadership. And a big part of the foundation of any business is, do you have the right leadership in place? And leadership means do you have a vision? Is it clear? Is it written out? Is it something that you can communicate to your stakeholders? Do you have a mission statement that's clear and easy to remember and follow? Do you have core values that you can measure everything by? So when you're hiring people, when you're bringing on new business, does it all match up to your mission and your core values? And by having those things in place, that's kind of the launching pad for being a shatterproof business. And a shatterproof business is a business simply that will bend and not break. Too many of our businesses are really teetering on the edge, and if one thing happens, it can destroy it. But if you build it on solid foundation with solid legal structure and business systems, then you don't have that problem. You have a minor blip on the radar, you get that fixed, and you keep moving, because it's no longer if something bad is going to happen in your business, it's when. It's just a matter of time when there's going to be something bad happen, and you've got to deal with it. And we want to make sure that your business is able to survive and go strong through that.
You mentioned, I think, one or two. Do you have, what are the other ones? Because I think there's 7 of them.
Yeah. The other thing is you should have a team of what I call key board members, right? You kind of assemble your personal board. And one of those obviously is you should have a business lawyer, someone that understands the entrepreneurial journey and can help guide you through it and make sure you stay out of some of the pitfalls of that journey. You also need to have an accountant or a CPA. Those are the people that keep score, right? The way we keep score in business is money, like it or not. And they're the ones that know the rules and know how to help you make the most of your cash flow, keep the most of your profits, and not pay them all to the government and taxes. And so you need to have that person on that team. You also need to have an insurance broker because you've got to cover the risk that you have in your business. And you don't want to just rely on your structure and your systems. You want to have something backing you up. And that's insurance. And a good insurance broker is going to understand what you're doing, spend time with you to understand it, give you all the options you have to cover your business risk, and let you choose the ones that fit in your budget for this time frame, and then keep coming back to you and making sure that you're making the right adjustments. Right. So you need that insurance relationship. You need a banker. And I don't mean a bank. There's a bank on every corner anymore, but that's not what you need. You need someone that you can actually go in and have a conversation with. You've got their cell phone number, they have your cell phone number, and they're actively trying to help you manage your accounts, make sure that you're in the right accounts structures, that you have access to lines of credit, and that they're an advocate for you and making sure that you've got the right financial tools available. And last but not least is you need to have a business coach on your team. If you want to scale fast, you've got to have someone that can help you define the journey and what's the map look like, and then hold you accountable to the action steps necessary to get there. I'm not saying you can't do it by yourself, but it's a much slower journey, and you're gonna have many more deviations from the path if you don't have a coach. I'm always working with a coach to help me accomplish whatever my next goal is. And if you assemble that team of key advisors, kind of this virtual board, and they're working together behind the scenes because you've introduced them all. And so if the tax person has a question for the legal person, they can ask them, and then they can bring you the outcome or what you need to do, rather than having to loop you into every discussion before it happens. And so it's really a key part of being a Shatterproof entrepreneur.
So what if someone can't afford a lawyer when they're starting?
Yeah, I get that. And with our access plan, we've got it where for as little as $5,000 a year, you can have access to a team of legal advisors to make sure that you understand what you're doing, can ask SOS questions when something emergency comes up, and that you've got your legal structure set up from the beginning in the right way. For less than $5,000, it's not an expense; it's an investment. And if you can't figure out how to pay $425 a month for that kind of service, then you're undercapitalized, which is one of the major issues I see in small business owners, is that they just don't have the right capital base to do what they're trying to do. They're trying to bootstrap it, and it causes problems because there's things you don't know. You have blind sides, and if you don't have enough capital to cover those, then you're really risking a lot. And so, before you start your venture, make sure that you've got the right capital in place so that you can have the professional team you need, so that you're making the right decisions at the first. Like if anything you build, if you're building a house, a building, you've got to do it right from the start. Yeah, you can go back sometimes and do some fixes. And I've had a house that had to have the foundation fixed. It was fixed, I guess, but it was never really right again. It always was different. And so you're much better off getting that all done up front. So get your funding in place before you start, and get the right experts on your team to do that, and try to do it in an affordable way. And that's what we do with entrepreneurs. And I know other lawyers are doing the same.
So what if someone gets their information from online? Because a lot of things are online. What advice would you say to people in regards to that when they're looking for legal information online?
Yeah, do-it-yourself legal is a field of landmines. You're smart enough to start asking questions, and so you're researching it, but you don't necessarily have the right education and experience to interpret all the information, and so you can misapply it very easily. And so it's just one of those places where I don't drill my own teeth if I need a filling. I don't do my own surgery. I go to the expert that knows how to do it. I could look up online how to do it and where to make the incisions, but it doesn't make sense for me to do that because I could mess up. Where if you're trying to solve a basic legal problem, it's something that we've done over and over again, then we can help you solve it quickly and efficiently and make sure it's the right answer. So what I say with the online stuff is look at it, go educate yourself, bring that to your legal professional and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Does this make sense? Right. So you've shortened the loop with them. You've now given them more information and they can tell you whether you're on the right track. If you, for instance, download a contract you want to look, a contract you want to look at, then that works. You download the contract, bring it to your legal team and say, here's a contract that I've put together. I'd like to make this work for this transaction. They can make whatever changes are necessary and get it going.
Do you have any case scenarios like good or bad in your career in regards to shadowproofing your business?
Some case scenarios? Yeah. Yeah, a big problem that I've seen recently is, and this is kind of a really technical issue, but when you have a corporation or LLC, you have a registered agent, and the registered agent is the person that's associated with your entity and the government. If the government needs to give you a notice for something with that entity, they send it to the registered agent. If someone sues you, they serve the lawsuit on the registered agent. And I've seen very recently where a couple of clients had themselves as a registered agent or a professional like a CPA or something, and they had switched CPAs years ago, and a legal notice comes through. They don't get it. The lawsuit goes to default. They end up with a default judgment with hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the way they find out about it is someone's showing up to seize their assets. And it all could have been avoided had they used what I call a professional agent service. There's many of them out there that they're open 24/7, 365, and they have a portal and a system for sending those to your preferred way of communication so that you can get those notices timely.
Do you have another scenario?
Sure. There's also been times with like there's the branding, and what's a big part of the Shatterproof book is that you have to have a consistent brand that you can own. I've seen over and over where companies have picked a brand, and not just a brand isn't your logo. Your brand is more of what you stand for, how you're identified in the marketplace. And they have a business that's branded well and growing and expanding in multiple states, but they don't have it trademarked. And if you don't own the trademark, if you haven't registered it in your country, then you have a problem because you could be climbing the ladder of success and it could be leaning on the wrong building and you don't own it. And what happens is you get a letter called a cease and desist letter saying you've got 30 days to rebrand your company. And there's really nothing you can do. You can maybe ask for a little more time, but there's no defense to it. If you've used someone else's brand because you were just didn't know, you were ignorant that someone else had already had that brand, you're infringing on their trademark, and they can take you to court and sue you for damages. Most often they just want you to shut it down and stop, but they could take you to court and sue you for damages, and you don't really have a defense. So not only are you subject to liability, but you've got to now stop what you're doing, rebrand your company, lose all the momentum you had going, and then spend the legal money trying to find a brand you can protect, and then all the money in actually redoing all your website and all your everywhere you have the branding. And so that's a huge pothole that I see a lot of small business owners falling.
Can you tell the process of if someone, let's say I'm in Canada, someone would start like branding, for example, they trademark in Canada, and then they have to trademark in the US and then Europe. Can you tell that process?
A little bit, and we don't do a ton of international trademarks. Most of our clients are working either regionally or just in the US. But yeah, if you have a product or service that's going worldwide, then not only do you need to protect it in your country of origin, but you need to get international protection. And that can be a little bit more expensive for sure, but you want to make sure that your brand is protected before you go out to the worldwide marketplace. And so you'd want in that instance, you'd want to get with a trademark law firm that works in international trademarking to make sure that your brand is something that you can own and dominate, and that you're not at risk of infringing on some other international trademark.
And so how do you work with clients?
Yeah, we have a subscription plan called Access. And so they have a monthly fee depending on which level they're in. There's 4 levels of Access. all of the levels include a monthly call with your legal team, so that it's called a check-in call. We can see what have you been up to since we last talked, what's coming up, what problems are you having, what things can we do to support you legally, because the more we know about what you're doing, the more helpful we can be. To me, the legal work is like primary care medicine. Traditionally, lawyers have been emergency rooms. If you treat lawyers like emergency rooms, you're always being reactive, and you're going to continue to make mistakes and have to pay the price for them. If you treat it like primary care and be proactive, and we're making legal decisions ahead of the action and getting the right information, then you can avoid those things. And so we have those monthly calls. We also communicate them through email, phone, and text, and then we're reviewing other contracts, creating other legal documents, and making sure that stuff is running well. And we do that all by a subscription. There are definitely projects that fall outside of it, but the main part of everyone's business legal needs are covered by that monthly subscription. So they don't have to worry about, well, if I have a legal question, it's going to cost me more money. It's included in their package, and they don't have to sweat it. They can just get with us and make sure they have the right information at the right time.
What would you say is the most common thing that entrepreneurs and business owner seek advice for?
The most common thing that we talk about is setting up the right legal structure. And so it's questions about, do I need an LLC? Do I need a corporation? Do I need to have it take S Corp status? Do I need to have multiple entities? We work with a lot of real estate investors and trying to set them up for success, so that they have what we call they're siloing, so their different assets aren't combined, so they're not exposed to the other assets. And so it's those kind of questions about, how do I set this up in an efficient way where I've got the right asset protection in place so that I don't lose everything when something goes wrong.
So when it comes to real estate, how is the legal structure, or not structure, but how is it differ, like on the real estate side and from the business side?
Yeah, it's usually more complicated, right? Because it's more asset driven. Most people in real estate space aren't just having one asset; it's multiple assets. They're continually buying properties. Sometimes they're flipping properties, and each of those houses or apartments have risk of their own. And so you want to have that not affect the others. So they end up having to have lots and lots of LLCs. We have some of them using, it's called a series LLC. It's only in a few states, but if you can use the series LLC, you don't have to file an application for a new LLC every time you want to close on a property. You just create the documentation for it and file an assumed name with the state, and you've got a new LLC that you can close into. And it saves you a few $100s at the forming, and it makes everything really streamlined. But that's the main difference, is you have all these entities owning these properties, and then you generally need another entity that's operating those properties, so that it's the property management company, or it's the company that's actually operating them and deals with the public. And so they have a much more complicated structure than just a business coach that has one LLC that they're operating their business coaching out of, and that's it. Because they don't really, their assets maybe are intellectual property, but they don't have hard assets that have risk that can expose their other assets to.
So if someone wants to invest in multifamily units, when it comes to buying and selling the properties and all that, like the whole investing process, what are the legal stuff that people should consider?
Well, when you're buying properties, there's all kinds of legal things you want to consider about the actual property. Does that property have risks that you aren't aware of? So you have to do due diligence. And then you want to make sure, again, that you're setting that property up in a way that it's protected from other things that you're doing, and that you're protected from the liability of the property. And so you want to create siloing, so each asset is in its own protected LLC. You also want to try to do that in a way that's anonymous, so your name's not all over everything personally. I was a plaintiff's lawyer for a long time, and that means that you're suing people. And the first thing that you look for is insurance coverage. The second thing you look for is assets. And there are services where you can do asset searches, and everything in your name will come up on a list. And so a lawyer can look at that and go, well, if I can get $1 million judgment, they've got $1 million of assets for me to go take. So you want to set yourself up in a way that if they run a list on your name, it's not going to show up because you've set it up in a way that everything is anonymous. There's certain states that are better for that: Nevada, New Mexico, Wyoming, to where they don't disclose the ownership of those companies, and so you can kind of run under the radar.
What would you say would be the biggest mistakes that investors make when it comes to real estate investing?
I think the biggest mistake is that I see this often is that they don't believe the advice that they need to have each asset in its own LLC. And so they'll have an LLC because they heard they had to have one, and they'll have 10 or 15 properties in one LLC. And so if there's a fire in one of them, and it was their fault because they were negligent in maintaining the property, for instance, then that asset is now exposing all the other millions of dollars of assets to that liability. And what happens is, I mean, you may not lose all those properties, but while that lawsuit's going on, you can't refinance them, you can't sell them. It's all locked down. And so your whole empire is in this one thing. And because of one incident, everything's locked down. And that can really be a huge problem because a lot of real estate investors depend on the ability to refinance properties and cash out of them for their money. That they're not necessarily living on just rent cash flow. They're taking money out of these properties, harvesting the equity. And if you can't do that anymore for a prolonged period of time, that can be catastrophic.
All right. Any last words you would like to add in regards to Shatterproof, your business?
Man, I hope that people have gotten some value from our conversation. If they'd like to learn more about shatterproofing their business, they can get my book, The Shatterproof Entrepreneur, at Amazon.com. They can also go to reeblaw.com/Richard. And if they'll do that, they can download the 7 strategies that you mentioned. It's a small ebook that can help them implement right away. And then they can also schedule a 20-minute laser legal coaching session with me to talk about what's going on with their business. And I can give them my insight on what I think they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. And then they can take that and do it themselves. Or they can, they would be welcome to apply to become an Access member and see if that's a good fit.
And where can people find you on social media?
On Instagram, at the Scott Reib is probably the best place. I watch that account pretty closely. So if they wanted to DM me there, I can answer questions. And then we drop videos about daily with legal tips for small business owners that they can apply to their business and be well on their way to Shatterproof.
And on the internet, it's everything that you mentioned before, or you have other places that people can find you?
Yeah, reeblaw.com is a really good place. You can also go to shatterproofsolutions.com if you want to learn about the business coaching and events that we do.